Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where Karens assume anybody and everybody is an employee. And in today's episode, OP encounters a crazy customer who threatens to end them over some paper. It's such a crazy story, and I hope you enjoy the other ones as well. Subscribe if you haven't, and with that said, we're gonna dive into the stories. So this took place in a dollar store one day. I was trying to check out, but we were delayed because Karen was busy complaining to the cashier about the quality of the products in the dollar store. To which I then said, Karen, if you don't like the quality here, then go somewhere more upscale, like Walmart. Or if you got the budget, Target. At this, Karen got mad at me, and then she asked for a manager, because that's what Karens do. So the manager comes out, and for the next 2 solid minutes, she was complaining to the manager about how her staff was very rude, and how employees suggested that she should shop at Walmart or Target, and how insane it is to hire staff that promotes the competition. At this, the cashier is smirking, and I'm smiling from ear to ear. Karen then finishes off with, "If I was you, I'd fire such an employee. It's so bad for business." To which the manager then said, "Which employee said that?" Karen and the cashier then point to me, standing there with my Coke and a bag of chips. The manager then goes, "Miss, he's not an employee." To which Karen then goes, "Then why's he here?" The manager then looks at me, looks at her and goes, buying stuff?" Guys, that's the end of that short post, but honestly, was that lady serious? He's not an employee, so why's he here then? I don't know, Karen, maybe because it's a retail store that has things that people buy. You know, some people are just so entitled, guys, expecting anyone and everyone to serve them. And if you don't, why are you here? You're useless to me. Okay, so I always thought that I'd forever be a lurker on the sub, but here I am. Now, I've never been mistaken as an employee because I'm usually with other people, or if I'm alone, I have a bright purple bag on my shoulders that screams, "I don't work here." Oh, how the turntables. So I work at a daycare during my college breaks, and our uniforms are khaki pants and a blue polo, like every retail store ever. Now, I teach 2- and 3-year-olds, so my days are long and hectic, which means I tend to go immediately home from work. Until last Friday. I had some holiday shopping to do, and I didn't want to run out later, so I took the plunge and went to the store known for khakis and blue polos. And that was an obvious mistake. So I go in, grab a basket, start shopping, navigating the holiday retail madness. I've got some candy, some PJ pants, and a sweater in my basket, when I'm standing in the shoe aisle browsing slippers for my mom. Cue the lady with an overflowing cart, who I'll refer to as Colossal Bitch, or CB. So the lady flies down the aisle and she comes to a screeching halt by my side. Now I'm blissfully unaware. I'm looking at some fox slippers when I hear a loud "excuse me" while she nudges me with her cart. At this, I look up, see the woman, sheepishly smile and go, "Sorry," before scooting out of the way because I think she wants to get through. She then demands, "Where are the Christmas sweaters?" I then raise an eyebrow before the obvious hits me, and I chuckle and shake my head and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I know I look like I work here, but I don't." I then point to the gigantic logo on my polo, which is a very large bird with the words "Flower Schools" around it. Now, if that was the end of it, we wouldn't be here now, would we? The conversation that followed goes like this. The lady then says, "Ugh, lazy kids these days. Just tell me where the Christmas sweaters are." I then tell her, "Listen, ma'am, I don't work here. I work at Flower Schools. It says on my shirt." She then says, "Stop lying and help me." Now, I'm usually a very anxious and spineless person, but sometimes the angry confrontational a-hole inside of me pops out. And this was one of the few times. I tell her, "Look, lady, my 3-year-old students read better than you. I don't work here. I work at Flower Schools, and I'm gonna spell it out for you. FLOWERSSCHOOLS. I spelled that so slowly that I could just see the realization hit the lady's face. But oh no, she's not finished. She then says, "I want to speak to your manager. You are rude." I then say to her, "You're gonna have to go to my actual job to do that. Have a nice day, ma'am. Maybe you should read more." I then grabbed the fox slippers and walked away, feeling slightly triumphant at the fact that I for once did not cry while being verbally berated. Props to OP for digging deep and standing up to that Karen. Now guys, I've always wondered why Karens think employees would feel the need to even lie about not working somewhere. Like, is that something employees actually do? I would have totally gone along with it, and I would have followed her to find a manager just to see the look on her face. So this counts as one of my more surreal moments in life. There's been many I don't work here moments in my life, and I seem to have a poise or face for retail or something, but this incident stands far above the others. I was at a print shop that rented computers for customer use. I was using one to update and print a resume, as well as some other documents that I wanted to refresh and print. This was actually quite a bit back when not everybody had computers in their homes, or printers. So for a few bucks, you could rent a slot and type and get your work done. On this particular day, it was dead in the print shop. It was me all by myself and one employee who kept going into the back. The employee was the manager, and he was trying to get some inventory or something like that done. So the cast is the manager, myself, and later this old man. I was typing away when the door opens and the old man walks in. He looks around and marches over to the self-service copiers. I looked up, since he'd been the only one to come in the whole time I was there. I'm still typing my resume and trying to figure out how I'm gonna lay everything out and which references to use. The manager is still in the back. For a few minutes, I just keep working when I hear a noise. That's sort of, throat noise that some people make to get someone's attention. I then turn around and the old man is right behind me. He's holding some papers out at me and staring directly at me. I have no idea what he wants, so I look at him confused and ask, Did you need something? He then grunts at me, and yes, he actually grunts, and points at the self-service machines and then says, "They don't work." Now, I've been in and out of the shop a lot, and I know how the machines work, so I figure, what the heck? I stand up and walk over to the machines. A quick check verifies that they are working. So I ask him what he wants to copy. He then holds out the papers again, and I don't take them. I just double check the machines and show him where to put the papers. I tell him, face up, right here. Now, I remember saying and then showing him the number pad for the number of copies needed, and then the big green start button. I walked him through it and then turned and went back to my computer to do my work. Now remember, I paid for a slot of time on the machine. If I run over, I have to buy more time. So I'm sitting down at the computer and I'm about to start typing when my chair suddenly jerks around, startling me, as the old man is towering over me and he begins to cuss me out. I slide sideways out of my chair, grab the back of the chair, pull it free, and shove it between us, and I'm freaking out. The guy's yelling, cussing, trying to grab the chair and jerk it away, and I'm fighting to keep it between us, as that's the only shield I have. Somewhere during all the yelling and my freaking out, I think this man has lost his mind. I put together some of his rambling. He thought I was an employee and I wasn't doing my job. I finally managed to blurt out, "I don't work here," while he continues to yell and try to jerk the chair away from in between us. I was genuinely concerned if that little bit of space wasn't maintained that he'd attack me. The guy begins yelling at me about why I helped him then, and I was like, I was trying to be nice. He then countered with, "Then why are you the only person here if you don't work here?" To which he sort of had a point. Before I could explain that the manager's in the back, the old man yells something about terrible service, being in the military, and then he yells, "I'm going to kill you." Now, hearing that, my blood went cold, as the old man reaches both hands out from my neck. At this point, the manager comes and screams, "Hey, get away from him, now." The second the old man turned to look at who yelled at him, I literally jumped over the divider to put it in between me and the old man. He was positively red in the face, his fists were clenched. I can still remember his tan pants and slip-on brown shoes with the worn toe tips, and the wrinkled, buttoned-up, faded navy blue shirt. I can still see the few hairs on his head combed into a slight circle. He's burned into my mind, and I was freaking out. Luckily, the manager wasn't a small guy. He was well-built and easily dwarfed the old man. The old man took one look at the manager and realized that he couldn't fight the guy. Before I could say a word, before the manager could even ask what happened, the old man accuses me of threatening him, being horribly rude to him, and that I needed to be fired. Now, I was livid. I was legitimately worried that he would have killed me over a few black and white copies. The manager spoke two words very firmly: "Get out." There was a tone to them that I heard, clear as day. This wasn't just a regular get out. This was, "I'm calling the cops and this is your only chance to leave. Get out." The old man looked at me and smiled. He was actually smug and grinning at me. Now, I was confused for a moment until I put it together. He thought I had been fired and I was the one being told to leave. I then looked at the manager, who was still staring directly at the old man, and he says, Did you hear me, sir? I told you to get out. If you don't, I will call the cop." It was then the old man realized that the manager was speaking to him. He then says, "Don't you dare talk to me like that." The manager then said, "Hey, this is not a debate. Leave now, take your belongings, get out, and never come back to the store again." The manager never once raised his voice. He was just rigidly firm in tone. He then said, "I saw what you did and heard you threaten this customer. Now leave." The old man genuinely looked confused for a few moments. He kept looking back and forth between us, and it might have been funny if he hadn't threatened to kill me. Then I saw the look in his eyes, that moment of comprehension when he saw my backpack, the files, the fact that I'd been working in a rented computer spot. Only then did he realize that I didn't work there. And how did he respond? The guy gets super red in the face again, yelling something incoherent with a lot more vulgarities. The manager was quick. Suddenly, he was in between us, and he spoke very softly this time. He said, "I will physically throw you through that door if you don't leave right now. Not out the door, through it." At this point, the old man realizes that this is over. He grabs his paper off the floor and walks out the door. The manager follows him, locks the door so no one can come in. The next several minutes are a blur, as I spent the time having an anxiety attack and trying to calm down. The manager went to the back briefly to check the security footage, and then he came out and started making detailed notes of what happened. In the end, he refunded me the rental fee and gave me an open usage on the machine to finish my resume. He would only go in the back if absolutely necessary, and he kept a clear eye out just in case the old man returned. In the end, no cops were called because it was done, but the manager assured me that the man would never be welcome there again, and if he did come there again, he would call the cops and give them everything. So a few weeks later, I returned to the shop and learned the fate of the old man from the manager. The manager was kind enough to relate the details to me since he knew what I went through. The manager had compiled all the video footage and a statement as backup. If the old man returned, the manager had every intention of immediately calling police and having him arrested. He told me the very next day after the attack, the man arrived at the store and spoke to the manager. It turns out, this was the old man's son, and the son was a lawyer. But the son wasn't there to defend his dad. The son told the manager that his dad had done stuff like this before, and that he had dementia. He basically told the store manager that the old man had a bad habit of causing incidents. Not this extreme, just arguments. The son promised the manager that the old man would not be allowed out without supervision for a while, and that he would never come to the store again. The manager told me all this to help me feel better about what happened, and asked if I wanted to report the old man to police. And we had the son's name now. In the end, I decided to give them both a second chance. The man did say that he was former military, so maybe he had issues, or maybe it was just dementia. But at the very least, his son was doing his best to get the old man help, as well as force the old man to get it from professionals, so I left it up to the manager. Guys, this is a perfect example of no good deed goes unpunished, and I'm glad the old man didn't escalate the situation further and literally try to kill OP over some photocopies. So I did do a little reading on dementia, and a lot of people do often develop behavioral and psychological symptoms that can lead to increased agitation and aggression, such as shouting, screaming, verbal abuse, and sometimes even physical abuse. So that explains why the old man seemed absolutely crazy, and I really hope the son got his dad the help he needed. So today is my husband Randy's birthday. I had pre-ordered his birthday cake from the Fred Meyer bakery. After checking in with the awesome staff of the bakery, I picked up a couple of other purchases, went to the checkout, and was on my way out the door. And that's when I saw him. Now, he was a man that I'd say was between 70 or 80 years old. He had that slight hunch, where standing straight his head was bowed and near a permanent 45-degree angle. His hair was short, business appropriate. He was wearing a dress shirt, tie, belt, khakis, and dress slacks, worn with contemporary glasses. It didn't take me long to work out that this was a man whom, likely at many points in his life, worked in business, likely a manager or even a business owner. I saw the man crying, like soft sniffles. The tears were running down his face. If I've not mentioned, in the late 1980s, my mom and dad divorced, and mom got a job at a nursing home. So from the time I was 5 to my mid-20s, I spent a good amount of time volunteering my time there, and eventually working in an official capacity as a dietitian/caregiver. So naturally, I feel a very good-natured urge to be helpful, or at least very observant and mindful. Now before I could utter a word, he approached me first. Through slight sobs and with a pained voice that was saturated with distress, worry, and despair, He weakly asked, "Excuse me, I'm ever so sorry to bother you. I'm just so lost, I don't know where anything is. I've never been here before, and everything's just gone so wrong today. I've been walking around for nearly an hour, and you're the first employee that I've seen. Can you please help me?" Now, this was a genuine, earnest plea for help. I felt sad, just listening to him beg for help. I had no intent of making his day worse by telling him that I didn't work there, so I nodded to him. I told him, "Sir, I'd be more than happy to help. I'm very sorry that nobody got to you earlier. I'm fairly sure you only had the misfortune of walking past people, and you just not seeing one another. Regardless, how can I help?" The kind old man said first that he wanted a new pair of men's pajamas. He said his old pair got ruined that morning, and he needed a new pair before bed. I told him that rather than just tell him where they are, I'd just push my chair right to them, and he'd only need to follow me. So I led him to the section full of flannels, bathrobes, PJs, and all that jazz. Curiously, he asked me my advice on what I think was more comfortable. I advised the flannels, since it was the Pacific Northwest and winter was on its way. He agreed. He then thanked me and asked if I could then show him where the flashlight light bulbs were. Fortunately, I did know just where they were. I told him that we could kill two birds with one stone, and he seemed to have difficulty walking, and I'm in a wheelchair. So if he pushed my chair and used the handholds, he'd effectively have use of a walker, and I get pushed where we needed to go. At this, he seemed to cheer up, and he said that's the kind of thinking that would have gone far in his old business. So I guide him and chat with him all the way to the home garden section. I listen to every little thing he has to say. I react and comment when appropriate. He seemed to cheer up and open up to me. Unbeknownst to me, we were being followed, and this becomes important later. So when we get to the bulbs, he describes his flashlight to me, and believe it or not, I knew just the flashlight he had. It was those silver metal kinds that are very often used by theater ushers, that kind of resemble a lightsaber from Star Wars. I asked when it was made, and he told me he bought it in 1965. I grimaced and explained that most of those bulbs, while they'd fit, wouldn't necessarily be compatible. I then recommended an inexpensive but very powerful flashlight that my husband uses. Now I have to admit, I was only briefly afraid of revealing my sexuality to the man, but saying husband is so common for me that I don't think about it. Then I remembered, duh, I have a pride flag on my hat. The man asked how long I'd been married, and we made small talk about that as another sales rep got the flashlight out of the case. The man and I then roll and walk to the checkout aisle. Now Owen, the observant checkout guy from my previous story, came over to handle much of the physical part of the ring up. He cashes out, and then we're back to where we started. The man breaks down and he cries again, which honestly started to make me cry a little. I then asked, "What's wrong?" He told me he knew I was probably off work, and I was on my way out the door. He saw the birthday cake and heard me mention my husband. He did the mental math long before, and figured I was there to pick up my husband's cake and was leaving when he stopped me. He said he felt so bad that he made me help him when I clearly had somewhere to be. And this is where I did shed some tears. I'm real empathetic. I say to him, my husband would be more upset at me if I saw a person who was genuinely in need and just rolled on without a care. He'll understand. He won't be mad at all. It's basic human decency, sir. The absolute right thing to do. And helping a person out by giving them kindness is never an imposition on me. The man then held out his hand and I shook it. He then briefly cupped his second hand on mine, and he sobbed out a thank you. He then said God bless me, and may my husband's birthday be a blessed one as well. I then wiped the tears from my own eyes, and I said I hoped everything got better. With that, the man began the slow task of walking out the exit, and that was when I became aware of people standing around me. I turned around and there were 4 female employees that I knew and they knew me. The eldest of the group, let's call her Marge, approaches. Marge tells me that she knows I don't work here, but for me to do that was the kindest act of selflessness that she'd seen in ages. The other women agreed. I thanked them and reaffirmed what I said. I told them about working with the elderly, dementia patients, Alzheimer's patients, and so forth. It's just decency, good manners, and a part of what we should all do. They then asked if they could hug me, respecting social distancing in my space, given what happened too recently where a Karen grabbed my chair without permission. I accepted, and they all gave me hugs, and Marge asked if I was looking for a job. I then blinked and said that I had not considered it due to my condition of being in a wheelchair 90% of my day. Marge said that if I ever wanted to apply and if she was still working there, she'd give me the best recommendation she could. The other 3 girls agreed. I in turn thanked them, checked my watch, and realized that I was indeed quite late. I said my farewell, put my stuff in the car, and I drove home. Guys, what an absolutely wonderfully wholesome story. I know some of you guys love wholesome stories, and I hope that story made your day, because it made mine. Guys, just be kind to everybody. And that brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, an entitled Karen calls police because OP bought the car that she wants. It's such a wild tale. So go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.